This is the recording for HSC Option 2. We're up to the fourth key idea, the second dot point, and hurrah, hurrah, the last dot point. Challenges to the male domain, women in traditional male sports. And we're going to focus on the right-hand side of syllabus. The question, examine the debate that surrounds the entry of women into traditional male sports such as boxing. There is two parts to this question. The question then wants you to compare this with the entry of men into traditional female sports such as netball. Now, the first thing you need is a bit of an understanding of what is considered to be traditional male sports. Some examples here are some photos we've got here is rugby league, AFL, car racing, cricket, and probably the one that's the syllabus certainly highlights is the sport of boxing, where there's some real big debate, and we'll have a look about that in a moment. The interesting sport to talk about is soccer. Now, probably 2 decades ago, soccer was almost on the same level of some of these other sports, such as rugby league, in terms of acceptance. But in the last 2 decades, female soccer has made some great strides in terms of acceptance, where there's probably at the point where there is very little eyebrows raised or acceptance when a female wants to play soccer. The participation rates are gaining rapidly in this country for Saturday or weekend soccer, to the point where it's coming very close to overtaking netball in terms of popularity. So soccer would be one I would be talking about as a bit of a test case that has made some great changes. There's been some great progress being made recently. On the flip side, what are some traditional female-dominated sports? Probably the only team sport I could come up with is netball. Now, this is a bit of an interesting one to talk about because there seems to be a lack of desire by males to even want to play netball. There are some small leagues around in the country, but by and large, it's not a sport that males seem overly fussed about wanting to get involved in. Now, there could be some reasons for that. Is about if a male wanted to play netball, he could certainly probably have his sexuality questioned. But by and large, it just seems there's no desire for men to want to get involved in this traditional female sport. The other individual sport is something like ice skating. This is at an Olympic level and males are able to compete. But there's probably no, what I would say, acceptance of this, particularly in the country of Australia. I certainly can't nominate a successful international ice skater male. I'd be surprised whether very few people could. So it's not a sport that has gained acceptance in this country. In fact, certainly I think you could have, if any student or young male wanted to get involved in the sport of ice skating, unfortunately they would have their sexuality questioned, I'm sure. So using a couple of sports as examples, what are the challenges females face if they wanted to get involved in a sport such as rugby league? They would probably more than likely attract some criticism about their sexuality. They would also told that they don't have the physique to be able to play the game, and it'd be also going against generations of media-driven stereotypes. Now, what that last point means is that there's just this general acceptance in the community that there are some sports that women are not suitable at playing, and the sport of rugby league would be one of those sports that fits that example. So where does it actually stand today? Well, it is actually changing. I think if you had a look at the situation 10 years ago, for some of those sports it'd almost be zero acceptance about females playing those sports. But today it's becoming increasingly more popular for females to play some of these contact sports such as rugby league and AFL. In fact, recently the Australian rugby league team won the World Cup that was held overseas. And that did get some media coverage, or certainly not, I would say, mainstream media coverage, but it certainly attracted some media coverage, and it has improved. And the example I was talking about before was soccer. That's the one that's really made some great progress recently, and that'd be one I'd be talking about in your answer. There are some sports that are slower to gain acceptance, and one of those certainly is boxing. Now, boxing is just one of those sports where it seems like I don't think females will ever get on an equal footing with males in terms of acceptance. It is now a sport at the Olympics where females can box for a gold medal, but even that, it attracts criticism. With the general perception in the public is it's just a sport that females should not get involved in. Now, this is something I think you should talk about, argue strongly in your answer that this is in fact not correct. because I think until females get 100% acceptance in all sports that men play, they're always going to have this struggle about not being suitable to compete. So I think what I'm saying there is what you need to make the argument is that it's really important for the community to start accepting females into sports that males are able to play. One of the problems that females do run into when they start playing male-dominated sports is receiving a lack of media coverage. Now, unfortunately, one of the sports where they are receiving media coverage is this sport that's taken off in the last few years, and that's called lingerie football. It's a sport that's started in the USA, and it's starting to spread out to Australia. They're playing some exhibition matches, and for obvious reasons that is getting some media coverage. I think this is really unfortunate, and I think you should argue strongly that this sort of thing is a bit of a detriment to female sport, as it actually sets up overall a negative image for female sport in this country. In terms of males going into female sports, as I said before, there doesn't seem to be a real issue in this country because there just seems to be a general unwillingness for males to want to play female sports such as netball. Now, you could make an argument that perhaps males do want to play the sport. It's just that they don't want to get involved in it for fear of ridicule. But I think it's probably more a case of that males are actually have the opportunity to play all the sports now that have the acceptance in the community. So the big sports in this country, such as rugby league, AFL, soccer and cricket, are already the male-dominated sports. And so there's a real reluctance, I think, for males to want to get involved in some of these lesser-known sports in this country.